Arab Tov, everyone, and welcome to House of Seven Beggars. It is Wednesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This, of course, is the House of Seven Beggars. Therefore, it must be the Torah study with Rabbi A. In the Torah study in depth with Rabbi A, as my wonderful neighbor cuts my lawn and comes by the window every so often. So if you hear that noise and you're wondering what it is, it's a lawnmower. Okay. Tonight's I am dealing with a slippery elm lozenge right now, which I probably should have done a few minutes earlier. I've been had meetings and did a class today, so I've been pretty much talking nonstop for 6 hours, so my voice is a little raspy, as you might be able to tell. But take my lessons, we should be fine. Okay. So the last time we were together, this is, of course, we're continuing our in-depth study of the Torah. We are studying the Sefer Shemot, or the book of Exodus. We are on, this is going to be Perek Kaf Aleph, Pasuk Yud Gimel, or chapter 21, verse 13, which is where we left off. Tonight we do our Torah study in the merit of the state of Israel, who has been under constant rocket barrage, and with the hopes that Hashem will keep everybody in Israel safe, and that Hashem will give the Israeli military a swift and just triumph over the so-called Palestinians. Okay. Baruch Adonai Elohim melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivahu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And I forgot to announce those people that are in the chat room. Who do we have in the chat room? We have Kali, we have Simcha, and we have Marilyn, Donald, Regina, and Marshall, and Richard. And those watching in the background who are not able to get into the chat because they're either on a tablet or on a smartphone, or so much for smartphones. Huh? Okay. So as I said, we left off on verse 13, and that's where we will pick up tonight. One who strikes a man so that he dies shall surely be put to death. Okay. That one we actually did last week. So we're on to 13. I did 12. But the one who did not lie in wait, and God brought about to his hand, I shall provide for you a place to which he shall flee. Okay. So Rashi goes on to say here, but one who did not lie in wait. He did not ambush him, and he did not intend to kill him. Rashi goes on to specify that further. Lie in wait. This means ambushing. Likewise, the word saleh is said in the verse, you shall lie in ambush for my soul and take it. It is inaccurate to say that the word Zada, let's see if I can find the Nikud on there. There it is. Okay. Zada has the same meaning as the phrase Hazad Han Zayid, one who hunts prey. for the letter hey does not appear in the verb form of the word hunting animals. And the noun is zayad, hunting, while this one was noun form zadaya, zadia, lying in wait. Its verb form in our verse, zodem, to ambush, while the other verb form is zat, zayin, dalit. Uh, excuse me, zalidat. Okay. Let's move on here. Verb forms. So I'd say that the meaning in our verse is as it is rendered by Targum Onkelos and one who did not ambush him. Menachem ibn Saruk. Ibn is actually, I guess, Arabic for son of. So not Menachem, son of Saruk. Classified the word zadam in our verse in the entry of the verb in the phrase hunts prey, but I do not agree with him. If it is possible to classify it among the entries of verbs whose word whose root is zandalit, as opposed to Rashi's opinion that the root of the verb in our verse is going to be zadi dalit hey. Okay, it's a long way to go. Let's classify the entry zad in our verse. You will be carried on the side. Is it carried on the side, daddled on the knee, so on and so forth. And the word zda in the phrase, I will shoot to the side. And the word lazad in the phrase, he will speak words heavenward. Here, too, the word lo zadam in the phrase shir lo zadam means he did not turn sideways. To find for him any aspect that would make his victim worthy of death in his eyes. One can have reservations about this too. In any case, it means ambush. God brought about to your hand. He prepared for your hand is akin to the word tilne in the phrase, no evil will befall you. A lot of commentary on this from one very small verse. The word Yelne in the phrase, no iniquity will befall the righteous man. And in the word mit'ana, in the phrase, he is picking a quarrel with me, and he is prepared to find a pretext against me. And God brought about to his hand. Why should such a thing go forth from before him? Meaning him. This is what David said in the verse, as the proverb of the primeval one says, evil comes forth from evil ones. The proverb of the primeval one is the Torah. For it is a parable of the Holy One, blessed is he, who is referred to as the primeval one, because he is the forerunner of the world. And what did the Torah say? Evil comes forth from evil ones. In the verse, and God brought about to his hand. What is this verse speaking? I am sure everybody is asking, what's your point? Simon has joined us. Good to have you, Simon. So what are they asking? about two people, the one whom had killed unintentionally and the one who had killed intentionally. And there were no witnesses to either matter who could testify regarding the murderer's identity. The one who killed intentionally was not put to death, and the one who killed unintentionally did not go into exile. Sort of the what would you call it? Corpus delicti. Um, the Holy One, blessed is He, summoned them together in the same inn. The one who killed intentionally sits beneath a ladder, and the one who killed intentionally ascends the ladder and falls on the one who killed intentionally and kills him. The witnesses testify about him who fell, that he and make him liable to exile because he killed unintentionally. It thus happens that this one who earlier had killed unintentionally goes into exile, and the one who earlier had killed intentionally is killed. I shall provide you a place, even in the wilderness, and where the unintentional killer, can flee. And what place takes him in? This is the Leviim camp. Because remember, the cities of refuge, later on when they come into Israel, the cities of refuge belong to the Leviim. Okay, so let's go back and catch up on the further commentary on this. And we have, let's see, the word Zada should not be interpreted as hunting from the word Vav Dalet. Okay. Saying one who did not hunt. A lot of commentary on that one word. Is the earlier known dictionary of Hebrew. In the verse means side. And he will speak to the side of the heavens. Although this interpretation of Zadam in our verse as derived from the Dalit side is defensible, as opposed to Menachem's opinion that it derives from the word hunting, it is not likely to be correct. And Wesley has joined us. Good to have you here, Wesley. As long as you're behaving yourself. Okay. The verb Aleph non hey can also mean to vex. In this verse, it means to ready, to bring about, i.e., and God brought about the circumstances that made an unintentional killer of this man. Let's see. Okay, so let's see, verse 3. Okay, why should he such a thing go forth from him? The further commentary says, why should God bring about the circumstances that would make a murderer out of a man who has no intention to do wrong? Let's see. All this evil comes from evil. Michael Tam. Folio 10b, hence evil comes forth from evil ones. God uses the guilty as his instrument to inflict evil upon others. The one who should have gone into exile did not was used to bring about the death of the one who committed murder intentionally, and the one who had committed murder intentionally was used to exile the one who had killed unintentionally. He who kills unintentionally is considered as evil one because he is guilty of criminal negligence. Therefore, God brought about his hand the circumstances that led to his exile. The unintentional killer. 6. Okay, that's 5. And there's 6. Okay. I shall provide for you a place. This is the Leviim camp from Mechilta Makot, folio 12b. For you appears superfluous. Furthermore, as the verse has been referring to the murderer in the third person up to this point, we would expect lo, for him. Rashi understands you as referring to not to the murderer, but to Moshe. The Torah juxtaposes for you with the place to imply that the law has application even during the lifetime of Moshe, before the entry of the Israelites into the land of Israel, in the place which belongs to Moshe, the camp of the tribe of Levi. As we know that Moshe was of the tribe of Levi. He was, direct descendant of Levi. In fact, his father was a priest. Okay. We move on to 14. Verse 14, when a man will scheme against his fellow to kill him with guile, from my altar you shall take him to die. Rashi goes on to say, when a man will scheme, in light of the many verses the Torah writes concerning the law of murder, why has this particular verse said? Because it says, one who strikes a man, and so on. I might understand that on the basis of that verse, that one is subject to the death penalty, even if he kills a non-Jew, and even a doctor who kills a patient in the process of treating him, and even an agent of the court who kills someone through administering the 40 lashes decreed by the court, which actually wasn't 40, it was actually 39, because you didn't dare want to miscount and go over. And even the father who strikes and kills his son while punishing him for some misdeed, or even the Torah teacher who chastises his student and kills him in the process, and even an unintentional killer. To teach us otherwise, the Torah says that when a man will scheme, but it does not include the unintentional killer, against his fellow, implies, but not against a non-Jew. To kill him guilefully implies, but not an agent of the court or a doctor who kills or one who chastises his son or his student. For although regarding their striking, they are intentional, they do not act with guile, and their strike is not intended to kill. Okay, from my altar, which I find this one kind of really interesting. This is from my altar. Rashi goes on to say, if the killer is a Kohen and he wishes to perform the altar service, you shall take him and put him to death. And other commentaries say you shall take him right off the altar. I mean, pull him right off of the altar and take him out and have him tried and put to death. Even the Kohen Gadol. Okay, so further commentary on this one, which is over here. Yeah, I already said that. Actually, 39. And that goes to Rashi's commentary in Deuteronomy 25:2. Although the preceding verse says that one who kills unintentionally is exiled, there are cases of unintentional murder where exile does not apply. For example, if one intended to kill an animal and killed a person instead, or if one kills because he does not know that murder is forbidden by the Torah, the act is considered too close to being intentional to be atoned for through exile. Rashi raises the possibility that such killers might be subject to the death penalty. Because the one who kills unintentionally, basically he goes he lives, he's a free man. He lives in, well, he can't leave the city of refuge, but he can move about the city of refuge as he wants. And on the death of Kohen Gadol, he is actually free to return to his home. Okay. Scheming. Scheming implies intention. Okay, I think we've kind of figured that one out. Okay, so let's see. This one is okay. Against his fellow implies, but not against a non-Jew. The further commentary on that says, according to Michelta, the Michelta, and concludes in that in such a case, the judgment, verdict, and retribution are in the hands of the heavenly tribunal. Okay, going on to 8. Okay, and he wishes to perform the altar service, the killer being a Kohen. Rashi is being precise in saying he wishes to perform the service, which implies that he has not yet started to perform it. Rashi to Yoma, Tractate Yoma, Folio 58a, and Tractate Sanhedrin 35b states explicitly that the Kohen who has already begun the altar service is not taken to be tried until he completes his task. Okay, there are other rabbi commentaries that say that, even if he is in the midst, well, actually, I should say that if he is on the altar, if he's in the midst of the sacrifice, he has to complete the sacrifice. However, if he is, if he is there doing several, then the between time he's taken. Okay. Okay. Just so you know, you cannot block anymore on YouTube. You can't block a person. All you can do is you can keep any him and can't see anything in the chat. He can't comment in the chat room, and that's about it. If he wants to hang around and listen, fine. But he won't be able to post his trait little comments in the chat room anymore. Okay. 15. One who strikes his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. Rashi goes on to say, one who strikes his father or mother, because we have learned with regard to one who injures his fellow that he is subject to payment and not the death penalty. The Torah had to say regarding one who injures his father that he is subject to the death penalty and that he is only liable to the death penalty for a blow that causes a bruise. Okay. The further commentary on that says that this is either a bruise or a wound that draws blood. His father or his mother, Rashi says, either one or that one. So, either father or mother or both or whatever. Okay. Shall surely be put to death. And the death penalty is strangulation, to strangulation. Okay. With regard to either this one or that one, the further commentary says the Mechilta, the prefix here is not to be understood in its most common sense. And in this case of the verse, would be saying that one is not subject to the death penalty unless one strikes both parents. Rashi deals with a similar point in his commentary to chapter 12, verse 5. So for whatever good that is. Okay. Verse 16, one who kidnaps a man and sells him, and he was found in his possession, shall surely be put to death. Rashi goes on to say, one who kidnaps a man and sells him. Since the laws of kidnapping are dealt with elsewhere in the Torah, why is this particular verse stated? because it says, when a man will be found kidnapping a person from among his brothers. All I know, this is Rashi speaking, all I know on the basis of that verse is that the Torah imposes the death penalty on a man who kidnaps a person. What is the source for the imposition of the death penalty upon a woman or a person of indeterminate gender or an androgen who kidnapped? To provide this source, the Torah says here, one who kidnaps a man and sells him, without referring to the kidnapper as being a man. So anyone who kidnaps. And because it says here, one who kidnaps a man, all I know, Rashi again, on the basis of this verse is that the Torah imposes the death penalty on one who kidnaps a man. What is the source for the imposition of the death penalty on one who kidnaps a woman? To provide this source, the Torah says one who kidnaps a soul, without referring to the victim's gender. This is why both verses are necessary. What this one left out, the other one reveals. And he was found in his possession. This means that a witness saw that he had kidnapped the victim and had sold him. Thus, the victim was found to have been in the kidnapper's possession before the sale. Shall surely be put to death through strangulation. Any death penalty stated in the Torah without further qualification is strangulation. The Torah interprets the topic of offense against parents and wrote one who steals a man between one who strikes his father or his mother, the one who curses his father or his mother. It appears to me that this is the source of argument, and that one Tanaic master holds that we compare striking to cursing, and one master holds that we do not compare them. Okay, so with all of that, we have, with regard to, found to be in the kidnapper's possession before the sale. From Mechilta, the order of the verse which puts, and he was found to have been in his possession after one who kidnaps a man and sells him, could have been understood as implying that a necessary condition for a kidnapper to be subject to the death penalty is that the victim is found in his possession at the time that the witness testifies against him. Rashi explains that the verse means, and he was found to have been in his possession. Okay, and with regard to the one master holds that one master holds we compare striking to cursing, and the other master holds that we do not compare them. From the Tractate Sanhedrin, Folio 85b, the prohibition against the death penalty for cursing one's parents applies only to the parent who abides by the laws of the Torah. There is a dispute in the Talmud, again, Sanhedrin 58b, as to whether the law of one who strikes his parent is parallel to the law of one who curses his parent in this respect. Rashi suggests that the one who is of the opinion that the law of striking parallels the law of cursing maintains that the verse which discusses the two different offenses are juxtaposed sufficiently to apply the point from one to the other. That striking is equivalent and cursing are equivalent. The one who is of the other opinion holds that since the verse about kidnapping interposes between the verses about striking and cursing parents, it breaks the continuity and there is no juxtaposition. And it says, again, to see Rashi and Yevamot, folio 101a. Okay. Verse 17. Okay, so verse 17. Now, one who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. Okay, so Rashi goes on to say, one who curses his father or his mother, in the light of the fact that the laws of cursing one's parents are discussed elsewhere in the Torah. Why is this particular verse stated? Because the Torah says, any man who will curse his father or his mother shall be put to death. All I know, this is what I like about Rashi. If he doesn't know, he tells you he doesn't know. And if he's not sure, or if he's just, basically stating, well, this is, as far as I know, he states it, which is great. It's not like, he's not saying, I understand it all, saying that, some things I just don't get. Okay, so all I know on the basis of the verse is that a man who cursed his father or mother is subject to the death penalty. What is the source for the imposition of the death penalty upon a woman who curses her father? To provide this source, the Torah says, one who curses his father or his mother without qualification regarding the gender of the one who is cursing, and implying that the death penalty applies whether it is a man or a woman who curses. If this is so, why does it say here, any man who will curse? To exclude a minor. Okay. So, Rashi goes on to say, it shall surely be put to death through stoning. Whenever it is stated, he has forfeited his life. Literally, his blood is upon him. The execution is done by stoning. And the paradigm for all of them is they shall pelt them with stones, and they have forfeited their lives. With regard to the one who curses his father or his mother, it says he has forfeited his life. Thus, the penalty for one who curses his parent is the subject of our verse is stoning, and not the good kind either. Anyway, moving on. Okay, with regard to this and the paradigm, the further commentary says, Binyanav paradigm is one of the 13 rules by which the Torah is expounded. A general principle derived from one verse is applied to all cases that are similar in at least one aspect of halakha. With regard to they shall pelt them with stones, and they have forfeited their lives. That from Leviticus chapter 20, verse 27, the first half of the verse reads, if a man or a woman shall perform certain types of sorcery, they shall be put to death. Thus, the phrase, they shall pelt them with stones, describes the form by which they shall be put to death. And the additional phrase, for they have forfeited their lives, applies that particular form of execution to any other transgression regarded which that phrase appears. They have forfeited their life. Okay. With regard to one who curses his father or his mother, it says he has forfeited his life. Leviticus 20, chapter 20, verse 9, the full verse reads, for any man who shall curse his father or his mother shall be put to death. He has forfeited his life. Therefore, stoning. Okay. Okay, verse 18. When men will quarrel and one will strike his fellow with a stone or a fist, and he will not die, but will fall into bed. Rashi goes on to say, when men will quarrel, in the light of the fact that the Torah deals with payments for injury elsewhere, why is this particular verse said? Because it says, an eye in place of an eye, or an eye for an eye. We have only learned that compensation must be made for the value of his injured limbs. But we have not learned that compensation must be made for loss of income and the cost of healing. That is why our passage is stated. Like I said, these get very interesting, because an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, burn for a burn, all that, cut for a cut, all that is not what it actually means. A lot of people have misinterpreted that, as I stated last week. That's not what it means. It means equal measure. And Rashi's actually going to go into how that actually is determined by the value of a slave in the market. Okay. Rashi goes on to say, but he will fall into bed. This is to be understood as it is rendered by Targum Onkelos, that he will fall to idleness, to an infirmary that keeps him idle from work. Okay, so with regard to that, the further commentary says it does not necessarily mean that the injured party was actually confined to his bed, but that his condition will prevent him from returning to work. Okay, verse 19, and if he gets up and goes about outside on his own power, the one who struck will be absolved. Only for his sitting idle shall he pay, and he shall heal. Okay, Rashi goes on to say, on his own power, through his health and his strength. The one who struck will be absolved. Would it enter your mind that this one who did not kill should be killed? But this teaches you that they incarcerate him until it can be determined whether the victim will recover. This is the meaning. When the victim will rise and walk on his own stamina, and he who struck him will be absolved. But until the victim rises, and the one who struck has not been absolved from his sitting idle. That is, his idleness is from his work due to the infirmary. If he cut off his hand or his foot, this payment is calculated as follows. We view the idleness from work due to the infirmary as if he were a watchman over cucumbers. For some reason, cucumbers. Why? I don't know. Okay, so a watchman for cucumbers, but not on the basis of the victim's income before injury. But after the infirmary too, he is no longer fit for labor requiring hand or foot. And the injuring party has already given the victim the value of his hand or foot lost through the damage he did. As it says, a hand in place of a hand, a foot in place of a foot. Okay. With regard to he shall heal, and he shall heal, Rashi goes on to say, this is to be understood as it is rendered by Targum Onkelos, he shall pay the doctor's fee. Okay, so going back here to through his health and his strength, the additional commentary says that from Mechilta, Mishan To can also mean his walking stick. If it were to be understood in the same sense in this verse, it would be saying that the compensation would be stopped even before the injured party had fully recovered. And that is how Rambam interprets the verse. According to Rashi, however, this is not the case, for the Torah explicitly requires the compensation for any loss the victim suffered, even for the wages lost while he is not yet fit to return to work. Okay. With regard to, you shall rise. Okay. Would it enter your mind that this one who did not kill should be killed? Why must the Torah state that if the injured party recovers, the injured party is absolved? Okay, so we just answered a question with a question. Very good. Okay. Okay, well, with regard to the value of, he has already given the victim the value of his hand or foot lost through the damage he did, and it says a hand in place of a hand and a foot in place of a foot. The additional commentary on here goes to Tractate Bava Kama, folio 83b and 85b. The injured party's lost income, which is due directly to the absence of his limb in the example given by Rashi, is covered in the basic damage payment. The compensation which our verse imposes for the loss of wages due to the injured party's convalescence, for that period he is compensated by payment of a sum equal to the wages he would be capable of earning after his present recuperation period, i.e. the wages of a man who lacks a similar limb. Okay. And as it regards that he shall heal him, this to be understood by Targum Onkelos, he shall pay the doctor's fees, and the doctor's fees shall he pay, basically what Targum Onkelos says. Again, from Bava Kama, folio 85a, this does not mean that the injuring party himself must pay to do the healing. This interpretation has two practical ramifications. If the injuring party is himself a doctor and offers to treat his victim, the victim has the right to refuse his services and to demand that he pay a different doctor's fees. Furthermore, if the victim says, pay me whatever the doctor's fee might be, and I will treat myself, the injuring party has the right to insist on treatment by a qualified physician. The injuring party can rightfully claim that the victim does not recover fully. His reputation will be damaged. Okay. So we are at our halfway point. That's what we got completely forgot about and just kept rolling on. So, okay, so we're at our halfway point. We're going to take our break, and when we return, we will continue on with the. This is the Parasha Mishpatim. I forgot to mention that earlier, and we'll see what else is bothering Rashi. So stay tuned.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
Okay, well, let's do a little housekeeping here first. Muddy Acres has joined us. It's been a while, and Muddy Acres is my hookup for honey. She has made sure for a long time, 5, 6, 7 years now, that I am never without honey, which is great because I love honey. I use it constantly. So glad to have you with us. Colleen and Marshall, when we get those characters in here, when you click on those three little dots next to their post, the hide user. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, so we're having a little bit of a connection problem. Evidently, there's a something's going on with our cable because we're not able to keep a solid connection at the rate that we need to. So I guess, yeah, it just keeps flipping from red to yellow to green. We'll hang on here for a few seconds, see what happens. Again, we're seeing that error. Your YouTube is not receiving enough to maintain a smooth stream. Okay, let's see. Just waiting to see if. Yeah, I can see the video is kind of choppy, and I keep getting a red notification here. Our bit rate keeps dropping for some reason. Have not seen this in a long time. Usually it happens when we when they're working on the happen from time to time, but not very much. Okay. So I don't know what is going on. We'll just see. It seems to be from here. Okay, now. Okay. Yeah, we seem to be seems to be solid now. So let's just carry on. Okay, so if it starts dropping out again, we'll just go ahead and call it early. But it seems to be doing all right now. So okay, we're on verse 20. Oh, I also wanted to point out that Norma's here. Good to see you. Okay. I also wanted to point out in our housekeeping that Rabbi Ansel, who was doing the show, the old rabbis discuss on Monday nights, did have his cataract surgery. Did have a little bit of trouble, but it's clearing up, and they were able to relieve the pressure in his eyes. Baruch Hashem. So he will be back. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that because, as you know, once we hit the end of May, that we cease broadcasting live for the summer. But he will definitely be back with us when we return after the holy days. And but we're grateful that Hashem has made sure that he will be able to be with us, that his eyesight is saved, and that will not be an issue for him anymore. So, okay, so verse 20, getting back to Rashi. Verse 20, when a man will strike his slave or his slave woman with a rod, and he will die, under his hand he shall surely be avenged. Rashi goes on to say, when a man will strike his slave or a slave woman, the verse speaks of a Canaanite slave, or perhaps this is incorrect, and the verse speaks only with regard to a Hebrew servant. To teach us otherwise, the Torah says, "For he is his property." Just as his property belongs to him forever, so too the verse discussing a slave who belongs to him forever. Now then, the Canaanite slave was included. Now then, the Canaanite slave was included in one who strikes a man so that he dies. Why then is our verse necessary? But the verse comes to remove him from the general category of the laws of murder, to be judged by the law of a day or 2 days, in that if he does not die as a result of the blow of the master's hand, but lingered for a 24-hour period, the master is acquitted. With the rod. The verse speaks of a rod that has sufficient weight and strength to cause death. Or perhaps this is incorrect, and the verse means even one that does not have in it sufficient strength to kill. To teach us otherwise, the Torah says of an Israelite who is killed, and if he struck him with a hand-sized stone with which he could die. It is not a, this is this not a kal vachomer? Now, if in the case of an Israelite victim, which is treated more stringently, one is not culpable for him unless he strikes him with an object that is sufficient to cause death, and on the part of the body upon which the blow could cause death. A slave who is treated more leniently, all the more so. He shall surely be avenged. This refers to death by the sword. Similarly, it says, a sword which avenges the vengeance of the covenant. Okay. So the further commentary on this. Okay, so with regard to the Canaanite slave, the victim of the verse is not limited to an Israelite. The killing of a Canaanite slave is also punishable by death. With regard to 10, the master, if he lingered for a 24-hour period, the master is acquitted. Okay, from Mechilta, that is why the Torah specifies that the death penalty of this verse applies to one who kills his own slave, even though the slave as a victim is included in the general death penalty for murder stated in the above verse. The Torah states the leniency of a day or 2 days regarding the case of a slave killed by his master. And with regards to and if he is struck with a hand-sized stone with which he would die. From Numbers, chapter 35, verse 17, the verse implies that the murderer is culpable only if he killed with a stone deemed suitable to cause death. See Rashi there and Rashi in 35:18. Some editions adduce Numbers 35:18 here instead of 35:17. The verse reads, or he struck him with a hand-sized wooden utensil with which he would die. Okay. Continuing on. Okay, so with regard to okay, about death, a slave. Okay, a slave who is treated more leniently. The additional commentary says, in that the master is absolved if the slave survives 24 hours after the blow he delivers, even if he eventually dies. And then talks about the next verse. which is all the more so. The Torah, from the Milchata, the Torah should not hold his killer culpable unless he struck him with an object that could cause death, and on part of a body where such a blow could result in death. Okay. Verse 21. But if he will survive for a day or 2 days, he will not be avenged, for he is his property. Rashi goes on to say, but if he will survive for a day or 2 days, he shall not be avenged. If for 1 day the killer is acquitted, is it not true all the more so for 2 days? Then why did the Torah explicitly state 2 days? But the verse means a day which is like 2 days. And which is this? This is the form of a particular time on 1 day to the same time the next day, i.e., a 24-hour period. He will not be avenged, for he is his property. But if it was someone other than the master who struck him, even though he lingered for a 24-hour period before he died, the murderer is culpable. Okay. Okay, with that regard of the 24-hour period, from Milchata again, Milchilta, this is a day which is like 2 days in that one day period, 24 hours, which extends through parts of 2 calendar days. Okay, much like our days actually continue on through 2 Gregorian calendar days, because our day starts at night and goes through till the start of the next evening. So, okay. Okay, so that belongs to the next verse. Verse 22, when men will fight, and they will jostle a pregnant woman, and she will miscarry, but there will be no fatality, he shall surely be penalized when the husband of the woman shall impose upon him, and he shall give it through judge's orders. Rashi goes on to say, when men will fight with one another. Okay, and the one of them intended to strike his fellow, but he struck the woman instead. When they will jostle, the word Nagifa only means pushing down and striking, as it does in the phrase, lest you strike your foot against a stone, and therefore your foot stumble, and as is a stumbling stone. But there will be no fatality to the woman as opposed to her fetus. He shall surely be penalized by having to pay the value of the aborted offspring to the husband of the woman he struck. They assess her in terms of how much she had been fit to be sold for in the marketplace before she conceived, and how much to raise her price because of her pregnancy. He shall surely be penalized. They will collect the money from him, as the word Venshu means in the verse, and they will penalize him 100 silver coins. When the husband of the woman shall impose upon him, etc. This means when the husband lays a claim against him in court to impose a penalty upon him over this. And he shall give, that is, the one who struck the woman shall give the value of the aborted offspring. Through the judge's orders, that is, by the word of the judges. Okay, let's see if there's anything of note here. Let's see. Baba Kama, folio 49A. The value of a lost fetus is the difference between the value between a female slave who is pregnant and one who is not. Because a female slave who is pregnant is worth much more money. Deuteronomy 22:19. Although the verse can be applied to corporal punishment, here it means monetary payment. Okay. Let's see. What else we have here? Oh, and through the judgment, through the orders, the judge's orders. And he shall give through judgment refers to the guilty party giving payment. It does not mean, and the husband shall give his claim in court. Okay. So, $23. But if there will be a fatality, then you shall give a life in place of a life. Okay, Rashi goes on to say, but if there will be a fatality to the woman, then you shall give a life in place of a life. Our rabbis are in dispute about this matter. There are those who say a life is to be taken literally, and there are those who say that the verse imposes a penalty of money, but not literally a life. For one who intends to kill this person and by mistake killed that person, such as a woman in this case, is exempt from death. However, and this is only my opinion, is that basically it's like the person who strikes somebody unintentionally and that person dies, he has to go to the city of refuge. So anyway, is exempt from death and pays to the victim's heirs the victim's value he would have fetched had he been sold into slavery in the marketplace. Okay, I kind of side with the rabbis that say that, life for a life. Okay, he killed, and we have just previous to this, we have it already established that one who kills unintentionally, that he flees to the city of refuge. Okay. Let's see. Down to verse 24. An eye in place of an eye, a tooth in place of a tooth, a hand in place of a hand, and a foot in place of a foot. Rashi goes on to say, an eye in place of an eye. If he blinds his fellow man's eye, he gives him the value of his eye, which is assessed in terms of how much his value was decreased by blinding him with respect to selling him as a slave in the marketplace. And so too, all of them, i.e. the limbs and the organs mentioned in the verse, are similarly assessed. It does not mean that the literal taking of a limb of the offender, as our rabbis have expounded in Perkei HaChovel. Okay. The 8th chapter of Bava Kama. Okay. 25. A burn in place of a burn, a laceration in place of a laceration, a bruise in place of a bruise. Rashi goes on to say, a burn in place of a burn means a burn by fire. This up to this point, the Torah spoke of injury that causes depreciation of the victim's value as a slave. And now the Torah discusses injury which does not cause depreciation of value, but causes pain alone. For instance, the injuring party burned him with his fingernails, burned him on his fingernails with a spit. Oh, that's got to hurt. With a spit. In this situation, the payment for the pain is assessed as follows. They estimate how much money a person such as this victim would be willing to take in payment to suffer in this matter. Okay? I'm what's it worth? How much would you take to let me burn you on the fingernails with this? But oh man, I've done that. I have done that welding. Yeah, it's painful. It's painful. That would be a lot of money for me. Okay. A laceration. This is a blow that brings forth blood, for he lacerated the victim's flesh. In Old French, navré. It is all according to the circumstances of the case. If it involves depreciation of an inter party's value as a slave, he must give payment for the damage. And if the victim becomes bedridden, he gives compensation for the loss of income, for healing, for embarrassment, and for pain. This phrase of the verse seemingly superfluous, for it does not refer to any new category of payment not mentioned elsewhere. In Pirkei HaChovel, our rabbis interpret it to oblige the injurer to pay compensation for pain, even in a situation where he is obligated to pay compensation for damage. For although he gives the victim the value of his hand, they do not exempt him from compensating for the pain by saying that since the injurer acquired a victim's hand by paying for its value, it is his right to cut it off in whatever way he desires. Rather, they say he should cut it off with a drug so he does not suffer as much pain. But this one cut it off with an iron which caused him pain unduly. Therefore, he must pay compensation. Okay. Like I said, I find this fascinating. I don't know about you. I really find it this whole thing about compensation and stuff like that, and the pain and the suffering and the medical expenses and the slaves and all this other stuff. It just fascinates me. Okay, so keep an eye on the time here. A bruise. This is a blow within which the blood coagulates, but does not escape. Rather, it reddens the flesh opposite it. The term habura means taché in Old French, as the word burotiv does in this phrase, or a leopard its spots. It is rendered by Targamonculus, which is an expression of beating. In Old French, here we go again. In Old French, battre dure. Okay. Likewise, the word shidufot in the phrase beaten by the east wind, as rendered by Targamonculus, which means struck by the east wind. Likewise, the word in the phrase on the lintel, it is called that because the door bangs against it. Okay. 26. Oh, let's see if there's any further commentary on this. Does not seem. Oh, there it is. Yeah, actually, that actually goes to the next verse. So, 26. When a man will strike the eye of his slave or the eye of his slave woman and destroy it, he shall send him to freedom in return for the eye. Rashi goes on to say, the eye of his slave. This refers to a Canaanite slave. But a Hebrew servant does not go free through the loss of a tooth or an eye. As we have said in our commentary in the verse, she shall not go free like the release of the slaves. In return for his eye. This is the law of the slave going free, applies likewise regarding the loss of the tips of the 24 limbs. The fingers are the toes of the hands and the feet, or the 2 ears, the nose, and the tip of the givia, which is the male organ. Why were the tooth and the eye both stated? Both examples are necessary, for if it had stated an eye alone, and it had not stated tooth, it would have left us to conclude that the slave woman, he shall send him, slave woman, he shall send him to freedom, and not return, and in to freedom in return for his tooth. Okay, Rashi goes on to say, nothing. Okay. Looking for it here. Okay, return for his eye. The law of slave going free, likewise, the law of 24 foods is applied to the organ as well as the eye. It would have said, just as an eye is an organ that was created with him at birth, so too this law applies to any organ or limb that was created with him, but a tooth was not created with him. And it had, and if it had stated tooth and had not stated eye, I would have said that the law extends even to a baby tooth, which has a replacement if it were to be knocked out. Therefore, eye is stated. Okay, that was no commentary on 27, so we'll go to 27 to 28. And when he knocks out the tooth of a slave or the tooth of his slave woman, he shall send him to freedom in return for the tooth. Pretty plain there. When an ox will gore a man or a woman, and he shall die, the ox shall surely be stoned, and his flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox is innocent. Okay. Rashi goes on to say, when an ox will gore, whether it is an ox or any cattle, beast, or fowl, that it is included in the law. But the Torah uses the example of ox because the verse speaks of that which usually occurs. And his flesh shall not be eaten. From the implication of that which has been stated, the ox will be stoned. And I do not know that it is Neviah and Neviah. Because it wasn't slaughtered halachically. And the Neviah is forbidden to be eaten. Question. But why does the Torah nonetheless teach, and its flesh shall not be eaten? To say that even if one slaughtered it properly after it had been sentenced to be killed, it is nevertheless forbidden to be eaten. What is the source that teaches that it is forbidden to have any benefit from an ox sentenced to death? The Torah says, but the owner of the ox is innocent. This is like the person who says to another, so and so went out cleaned of his possession and has no benefit at all from them. And this is a midrashic explanation of the clause, the owner of the ox is innocent. In its simple interpretation, as the words sound, because it says with regard to a muad, a muad is an animal that is a habitual gorer. Okay. A muad that kills a man. And also the owner will die. And it was necessary to say with regard to the tam, and an animal that is not a muad is called tam. He doesn't habitually gore. but he gored this time. And the owner of the ox is innocent. Okay, and we'll get into this further because it says, the one who gores from, today and the day before, which means it's a habitual thing. Okay. With regard to, let's go back here. That the nebula is forbidden to be eaten, but what does the Torah teach? And the flesh shall not be eaten. This is the midrashic explanation of the clause. The owner of the ox is innocent. From Baba Kama, folio 41a. Naki is the word for innocent, also means clean. According to this midrashic explanation, our clause is the equivalent of the English colloquium, he has been cleaned out, as in robbed. Okay, we talked about the muad as an animal that is a habitual gorer. As defined in the next verse, the word means warned and alludes to the owners having been previously warned by the Beit Din to keep the animal under control. See Rashi to the next verse. The animal that is not muad is called tam. The word means wholesome or innocent, except for Rabbeinu Tam. Interesting. Just suddenly dawned on me. That we have the two sets of tefillin, right? We have the tefillin Rashi, which is the more common of the two, and then we have the other form of tefillin, which are called Rabbeinu Tam. And Tam means wholesome or innocent. Interesting. Okay, have to keep that in mind. Except for the certain species of wild animals. See the Baba Kama, folio 15b. An animal is considered a tam until he has exhibited the behavior of a mu'ad. Okay, and that is where we are going to stop for tonight. Again, just some housekeeping. We have a class next week, and then we will be off for the summer. As I've warned people, or threatened, I don't know, however you want to call it. Well, let's do this first. Okay, so as I have told you before, that years ago, my wife put her foot down and said, "You are going to take the summer off." And especially with what's going on with my wife's health right now, as some of you know, that we are going to be fairly busy during the summer this year. So we are going to take our sabbatical during the summer, and that we will return after the high holy days. This year we have, usually we come back after, what is it, Labor Day. But this year, Labor Day and Rosh Hashanah coincide with each other on the calendar. So we will be going right, actually, from Labor Day. We will actually be observing Rosh Hashanah and then Yom Kippur. And after Yom Kippur, we will be back, at least for a short period of time, until we get into Sukkot and Simchat Torah and all the other holidays that happen in there. So Anyway, so next week will be our last week, and then again when we return in the fall, we will have Rabbi Ansel will be back with us, and maybe a few surprises. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, I want to thank everybody for being here. Hope to see you next week. Don't forget, Friday night at 8 p.m. is Kabbalat and Mariv Shabbat service. And Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. is Shachrit and Musaf. Until then, everyone, Laila Tov.